Hey guys, how you doing today? A little bit of a different video today. I know I'm usually showing you how to fix things. In this case though, in this video, I'm just pretty curious about mass airflow sensor cleaner. There are quite a few companies that make it, and I'm trying to see if maybe it'll actually work or not. I have a particular case with this Mitsubishi that I'm working on. Well, obviously now it seems to be doing fine. It's idling pretty steady. But the customer was complaining about it dying just randomly or idling very low. I mean, with these modern cars, most of them, well, some cars don't use mass airflow sensors. They use a speed density, like a MAF sensor. But this particular car does have a mass airflow sensor. And I was kind of curious to see if it was acting up while, you know, it was idling low. And as I said, it's not idling low now, it's idling about normal. Even if I give it some throttle, it'll reset back to, you know, about where it should be, about 600 RPMs or 650 or so. That's normal for most cars. And if I look down at the scanner here on the live data, let's see if it'll focus there. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We see that the mass airflow sensor is reading 0.01 pounds per second. Different manufacturers will read in different ways. Some of them will read grams per second, some of them read pounds per minute. But this particular car does read in pounds per second. And this particular reading of 0.01 is correct. That's around 5 grams per second, which is what it should be at idle. Most cars will idle around 4.5 to 6 grams per second at idle. As you get up in the RPMs, you know, wide open throttle, you might see as much as, you know, I don't know, probably around 80 grams per second. But this car, you might see around 0.2. Maybe you should, you know, that's like under load, driving hard. That's probably what it'll be around. But looking at this, I can see that it is 0.01 where it should be. Now when I was driving earlier, the mass airflow sensor was reading 0, and the car should never read 0 because the engine is on. That means air is moving through the intake system, so there should be some type of airflow being monitored, but there wasn't any at all. And coincidentally, when the mass airflow sensor was reading 0, the RPMs were dropping to 400, 300, you know, just bouncing around. And then every now and again, this sensor would start reading again. So, like I said, it should never read 0, and this one was reading 0. As you can see, even when I just gave it some throttle there, and it went to 0. So it should never go to 0. But in the case, wide open throttle right there, it only went to 0.09. It should, you know, be reading more air than that. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and try this mass airflow sensor cleaner. I am unsure if it's going to work or not. I usually just replace the mass airflow sensor because that would be the correct thing to do, even though there is no codes on this car. This is pretty common for most cars that use mass airflow sensors, where you'll have system to lean codes, or in the case of this car, idling is pretty poor. You could try and do a tune-up, spark plugs and whatnot, but most of the time it's related to the mass airflow sensor, most of the time. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off of this car, and I'm gonna just give this stuff here a try. Okay, I got the mass airflow sensor off of this car. This is what a mass airflow sensor looks like. Well, I mean, they do come in different shapes, varying sizes, but pretty much what a mass airflow sensor does is there's a wire that's right here. You can see right here, this red wire. It gets voltage from the computer, and this heats up this wire. It makes it hot, and then as air goes across the sensor, you know, as air flows through it, because this would be stuck down into this hole here. So when you stick the sensor down here, the air comes across that hot wire, and obviously the air is going to cool it down some, and then based on how much it cools down, the computer knows how much fuel to provide to the car. So that's why if you have vacuum leaks after the sensor, you tend to get lean codes because the air that came in is not metered. This meters how much air comes through. Obviously that's what its job is. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try and spray this off with the mass airflow sensor cleaner and see if it helps or not. The mass airflow sensor cleaner I'm using is CRC mass airflow sensor cleaner. It says it has real tests and real results. So I'm gonna go ahead and follow the directions on here. You gotta make sure you do follow the directions on here. Don't just spray it and then just hook it right back up, because that will damage it. So you don't want to energize, or like I said, plug it back up if it is still wet with residue. It says to spray it 10 to 15 sprays, and then you have to be sure that it dries off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Yeah, that should be good enough. So I will go on ahead and let this dry as the directions say, and now reinstall it back onto the car, and I will get back with you guys when that happens. Okay, so I got the sensor reinstalled and hooked back up. This is the very first time I'm starting it back up. And as you can see, we still have a 0.01 pounds per second, which is normal. The RPMs are actually a little bit higher this time. I doubt that's due to coolant temperature. As you can see, it's 169 and rising. So the car is well into closed loop by now, and the RPMs should be around 600-ish. But let's go back out here to reselect what I need it to select. We'll go with bear with me for a minute, go with the engine RPMs and the mass airflow sensor reading, which was right there. Okay, so we're at 730-ish for RPM, and as I said, a normal mass airflow sensor reading. I'm gonna get, usually you would see around 700, 730 if the AC was on, as the RPMs do rise to compensate for the load that the AC compressor is gonna put on. So let me go ahead and give it a little throttle just real quick and see how it reacts. You see it's still going to, see how it's at 0 now, and it's at 400, and then it went back to 0.01 and the RPMs restabilized. So I'm not going to say that the mass airflow sensor cleaner doesn't work. It very well could work for cars that do have dirty mass airflow sensors. Sometimes the wires do get dirty. That is a fact, and it does happen. But in the case of this car, I am not sure if the mass airflow sensor cleaner really worked. Only because I just saw it drop to 0 right there, and the RPM still went down to 400. So the mass airflow sensor in this car actually probably is bad, and I'm probably going to replace it, because driving along this might just very well die again. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and put it in drive and see if, excuse me, camera real quick. I'll put it in drive here and see if it doesn't affect anything at all. The RPMs are pretty low now. Why this camera doesn't want to focus on the screen. Yeah, I bet if I do drive around, this is probably going to go drop into the 0 range again. I I'm pretty convinced, because it was doing it all day yesterday, and now it just, even after I cleaned it, it still dropped down to 0. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and replace the mass airflow sensor on this car probably tomorrow, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I just was curious to see if the mass airflow sensor cleaner really works. And like I said, it probably does work for a car that does have a working mass airflow sensor that just may have gotten dirty, because they do get dirty if you don't change your air filters frequently like you should. The dirt will just go right to that wire, and it'll just stick right on it and give you faulty readings. So I don't want to say anything against CRC. They make good products. So by all means, if you are having idling issues and you don't have a check engine light, this will probably be the first thing you should check into, the mass airflow sensor, because they do get dirty, or they do fail, in fact. But as you can see, this one is pretty intermittent. It runs awful when it's cold. Now that it's warmed up some, it runs a little bit better. But yeah, so if you did like this video, please hit the like button. If you would like to see future videos of certain things, just let me know. Maybe you don't know how to use your scanner, or maybe you would like to do some electrical troubleshooting, whatever you may need to see, just definitely comment or send me a message. I do respond to everybody, and I do read all the comments. So yeah, just let me know. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the way out. All right, guys, I'll see you later.